Tip number 1 is to start at the beginning and think about your objectives. What are you looking to achieve? You need to be clear about this. The best way to do this is to set some goals and targets. The way that I describe goal setting is to compare it to a game of football. In a game of football, you have a pitch and 2 posts at either end, goal post. In the middle of the pitch, there is a lot of activity and sometimes confusion, and that is where you will find yourself, in the middle of the pitch. But as long as you know which direction you are heading, you will get there. Tip number 2 is to know yourself. What are you passionate about? What are your natural skills and strengths? Do you have what it is required to succeed in your goal? Or do you need to actually get some qualifications, or can you actually proceed immediately? This is some of the things that you need to look at. I will give you an example of one of my candidates who actually did a degree in fashion at the London College of Fashion, and he is now miles away from where he started. He is now the head of product development at a tier 1 technology company. So what sometimes you may think is your strength could actually be your weakness. It's a good idea to ask friends and family, because we often limit ourselves in terms of how we see ourselves. Make a list of all the things that you're actually good at and see how you can utilize them in terms of a successful career. Tip 3 is about mapping the market. Once you have set some goals and know what you want to do, you will have some clarity. The more clear you are, the easier and quicker it will be for you to be able to get there. You can now put together a marketing plan. Your marketing plan will require you to map out a target market, a list of companies that you would ideally like to work for. Each company will have a different approach. Some of the larger corporates will actually have a graduate scheme that you can apply to and go to their open days. Other smaller companies, you will actually have to have a different approach, where you approach them directly, put together a good CV, a good cover letter, testimonials, a portfolio of your work, and then find the right person to approach and make a personal approach to them, find out their name and send your application to them. You also will need to get a hold of some headhunters, recruitment companies, look at job boards, and employers are actually looking for you at the same time as you're looking for them. They will be searching Monster, JobSite, number of different job boards, and also LinkedIn. Number 4 is to have a good CV. When hiring globally, it is frustrating for companies when they're dealing with international students often, because the CVs tend to be very brief and don't give much detail. It is important to get your CV right. CVs are often not read in detail, but on initial application they will always look at your summary, and in your summary you should include all your achievements together with a good cover letter. The cover letter should pull out all the best parts of your CV into a letter, which you can actually then send. But you should treat your letter, your cover letter and your application almost like an interview, so that you actually answer questions, because applications are scored. So if you have a 0 to 4 score, you need to get a 3 to 4 to go to the next stage. So for example, if one of the questions on an application is that, give me an example of teamwork, you need to give an example and relate it to your actual experience to give yourself the maximum opportunity of going through to the next stage. Tip number 5 is to have a good pitch. It's important to have a good pitch, because sometimes you'll be talking to someone at the end of the phone, or at a networking event, or actually an open day. So you should be able to answer the question, tell me about yourself. Your pitch should be a powerful and a short description of who you are and what you're looking for. When you're talking to a potential employer, make sure that you're actually interested in their company and enthusiastic and passionate about it, because this is some of the things that people look out for. And if it's a particular industry that you're interested in, make sure that you have done some research, know what's happening in that industry, and ask the person for their opinion, because these are the things that will make you stand out as a candidate and be remembered. you now have your list of, say, 50 companies that you would like to target. Your CV is looking good and you have a pitch. You are now ready to implement and take action on your marketing plan. This will require you to do a number of different things. You will be making applications online, you will be speaking to people on the phone, and you'll be speaking to people at careers fairs, etc. The recruitment process in itself is actually quite simple. You may be required to do a test online for which you should prepare and practice beforehand, do an application online, or send a CV to an employer. The next stage will be the interview process, and there will be a number of different interviews. There could be a video interview to shortlist candidates, a face-to-face interview, a panel interview, HR interview. At the end of the interview, there will be an offer, and then you can negotiate a package. And at each stage, you will need to be prepared for the next stage to be successful. Tip number 7 is all about interviews. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about because I have seen some candidates that are very incompetent and nervous interviewers, and they've been transformed into an interviewer that the company is really interested in taking them forward. On the other hand, I have seen some candidates who are very high, top of their game, and they've lost their confidence at an interview and then started to perform really badly. It's important that you do your research before the interview about the company, the person you're going to be meeting. You can ask them before the interview what kind of interview it's going to be, so you can prepare yourself in advance. Know the kind of questions they're going to ask you. Be there on time. If you are running late, you've got mobiles these days, make sure you give them a phone call that you are running late. You need to be appropriately dressed for the interview as well. And I need to talk to you a little bit about body language as well, which is quite important, because body language will give some information away about yourself that you're not aware of. Example of good body language is smiling and being natural, allowing your personality to shine at an interview, because this allows you to build rapport with the person that's interviewing you. Examples of poor body language is folding your arms, looking the other way, not making good eye contact, and sometimes, that can be seen as a lack of confidence. Tip number 8 is to look at some of the questions that are likely to be asked. You won't be able to guess all the questions that are going to be asked, but 70% of the questions you should be able to have an idea what you're going to be asked at the interview. One of the questions that you tend to be asked quite a lot is your strengths and your weaknesses. Most of us know what our strengths are, but most of us don't like to focus on our weaknesses. One good tip is to focus on a weakness which is not going to impact on your job. So, for example, being a good swimmer is not important in your job, then you can mention that as a weakness. Another question which is quite popular that you will be asked at the interview is, why us? Why do you want to work for us? And you need to make sure that you can give an answer which is not a bog standard answer, but you need to apply your experience and what you're interested in terms of how that fits in with the company. It could be that you have the same values as the company and you're involved in similar charities that the company actually supports, or you've done a project which is where they're wanting to go to in their future. Then make sure you tailor your answers to this question, why us? And sometimes the companies, if they're really interested in you, will say, well, we don't think you're right for us. They will take it away from you. When they take it away from you, don't panic. It's because they like you and they want you to fight a little bit for them. Tip number 9 is, when you're coming towards the end of the interview, you would have by now hopefully used your pitch to highlight your achievements at the interview, and it's your chance now to ask questions. You will be asked by the interviewer if you have any questions. Make sure you have a set of questions that you're going to ask them. It's your chance to probe into the company, and listen carefully as well during the interview to make sure that you don't go off on tangent. The questions that you could ask the interviewer is, first of all, ask them about themselves and why they chose the company, because this will give you a good insight into their reasons for joining the company. And also it will help you to build a good relationship with the interviewer, because now you're getting personal and they're sharing personal information with you. Other practical questions that you should ask are about the role, the position, whether this is a newly created position, who you will be reporting to, the size of the department, all these things that you will need that will actually help you to make up your mind. Tip number 10 is all about how to end the interview. You're coming to the end of the interview, so you need to know what the process is going to be. You need to ask them what will happen next, so you're clear, and ask them for some time limits. So will that be 2 weeks, or ask them whether they have other people to see as well, so you can really get more information in terms of what's going to happen next. Also, you can evaluate yourself at this point, because if the interview has been 15 to 20 minutes long and it's been quite a short and very polite interview, it's a bad sign. Whereas if the interview has been 45 minutes to an hour, it's been very challenging, they've asked you difficult questions, they've taken the job away from you, it's a good sign that you have done well. It is only the candidates that companies are extremely interested in will they actually challenge them and put them to quite a vigorous interview.